Hi everyone, and welcome to the second video in my 2025 challenge, where I'm trying to see and photograph 250 species of birds in the state of Massachusetts this year. So I'm currently parked in Gloucester, Massachusetts, which is located on Cape Ann. So Cape Ann is a cape that sticks out into the Atlantic Ocean just northeast of Boston, Massachusetts. And the rocky shorelines around Cape Ann attract a lot of overwintering sea ducks like eiders and scoters, and also attract alcids like common murres and razorbills and things like that. So it's a really good place for winter birding. It's known for its winter birding. And so this is a good spot for me to start picking up some of the specialty birds from winter that I'm going to need for my 250 bird challenge. I have a route that I've taken in the past that I'm going to follow today, where I start in Gloucester and then I kind of work my way around Cape Ann in a counterclockwise direction. Cape Ann isn't all that large, so this doesn't involve actually all that much driving. So the weather today is kind of a good news, bad news situation. So the high winds that we have had over the past week have dropped. So that's the good news. We don't have a lot of wind to deal with. The bad news, I think you can see out the window there. It is snowing and there's a couple of inches of snow on the ground. So that is going to play a role today in terms of my ability to see birds and film them, especially if they're at any distance. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so before I start birding in the Cape Ann area here today, I want to go back and add some of the birds that I've seen over the past several days since I wrapped up the filming on my first video. So the first one was a real nice opportunity for me to get a new Massachusetts state life bird. And so that was pretty exciting for me and an opportunity to add a good bird to my list. So I'm going to roll the footage on that one now, and I'll come back here when it's done. Hi everyone. So I've driven about 45 minutes from my house to the town of Groton, Massachusetts, in search of a red-headed woodpecker. This is a fairly rare bird in Massachusetts. In fact, it's a bird I don't have on my Massachusetts state list. So this bird has been hanging around here actually for a couple of weeks in a power line cut. I've seen a lot of reports and I've just been kind of waiting for the right moment. I actually, I figured I didn't want to get it in 2024 because I knew I was going to do this challenge in 2025. I figured I might as well wait. So we'll see if that was a bad idea and I waited too long. Today is cloudy and cold and windy. It doesn't look like great weather for trying to find a bird, but we'll see how we get along. I do have a pretty good idea of the exact location that it's been seen, which helps. You know, it's not like I have to look over real wide areas. So let's see if we can find it. Okay, so after just a 5-minute walk from the car, I have reached this stand of dead trees, which is the supposed location, and it does look like a good habitat for red-headed woodpeckers. So now it's just a matter of what will hopefully be not too long of a wait, because it is cold out here, and I do think I see a few snowflakes in the air. So, well, the wait wasn't too long, probably about 15 minutes. And then the bird flew into a tall pine right where it had been previously reported. I really wanted to get some shots that showed this bird's spectacular red head better than this, so I waited around for a while. And over the next half hour or so, it eventually worked its way over to a somewhat better spot for me to photograph it. This is a species I would love to get some really good close-up footage of, but that just wasn't going to happen on this occasion. Okay, that was successful. I got the bird. Glad I made the trip. Okay, so that red-headed woodpecker was a lot of fun to see and a great way to start out the birding week. The next bird I want to add is another good bird that was delivered by my home patch, the Horn Pond Recreation Area. It just keeps giving me good birds. It's great. So this time it was an Iceland gull. This Iceland gull is another winter specialty. They're pretty scarce in the Massachusetts area. We only see them in winter. And actually the past few years where we've had mild winters, it's been really tough to find them. It looks like there's more of them around this winter. This gull was pretty heavily backlit while it was in the water there, so this isn't the greatest footage, but when it took off, I fired off a couple of flight shots, and those came out reasonably well, I think. The key here is you can see the all-white wingtips on this immature Iceland gull, which is a great way to tell that it is not a herring gull or ring-billed gull in one of their various plumages there. So Iceland gull, a good one to get on the list, and thanks again to my home patch. So one more bird I just want to add right now, and that is wild turkey. So there is a flock of wild turkeys that hangs out where I work up in Wilmington, Massachusetts, and you can often see them just wandering around the parking lots, and they like to walk up to the reflective windows of the buildings and look at their reflection in the window. So not shy at all. I think these turkeys would actually be quite happy to know that they're being featured in a YouTube video, to tell you the truth. So wild turkey on the list. Okay, time to start today's Cape Ann birding adventure by climbing up onto the battlements of Stage Fort, which gives a nice overview of Gloucester Harbor. The viewing conditions were not so great due to the snow and a bit of mist, but I noticed that there were plenty of birds out there. These two small birds caught my eye right away. They're horned grebes, which is one of my targets for the day. They were just a bit too far away, however. Fortunately, a few minutes later I found another grebe that was much closer to shore, and I managed to get some decent footage. I was happy about this because I know from experience that horned grebes, despite being quite common in winter, are not so easy to film. Okay, that's one new one for the list. Let's see what else we can find. Another common bird in the harbor was surf scoter, and I managed to get a short clip of this handsome male, along with a photo. Working my way around to a sheltered cove, I found a couple of male common eider in quite close to shore. These are the most common sea duck of all, so I wanted to make sure I got some decent footage before I counted them. Common eider are really handsome birds, at least the males, and they are one of the largest ducks in the world. Then, in that same cove, I spotted another handsome duck, a bufflehead. Coincidentally, this is one of the smallest ducks in the world. After diving several times in a row without spending much time on the surface, he decided it was time to take a little break to preen his feathers. I have to say, this close-up of a preening bufflehead with the snow falling in the foreground is one of my favorite shots that I've gotten in a while. I don't usually let clips run on this long in my videos, but I had to make an exception this time. That's quite a vigorous preening technique that he has. On the way to my next stop, I decided to stop along the harbor front to get a shot of the famous fisherman statue. This is actually a memorial honoring the many commercial fishermen from Gloucester who have lost their lives at sea over the centuries. A large flock of eider were hanging out in the water close to the sidewalk. As I mentioned, they're very common on the ocean in winter. It's not unusual to see eBird reports listing thousands of eider. I was glad I decided to stop to look at the eider because I then noticed something different. The white-winged scoter, also quite close in. So that's 2 scoter species down on the list today, just one more to find.
Your destination is on the left.
Okay, so just checking back in again. I've been birding a few locations around Gloucester Harbor for the past couple of hours. I started at Stage Fort Park. That's where I was talking to you at the beginning of the video. And then I came around to where I am now, which is the Jodrey State Fish Pier. So it's kind of a picturesque location where all the fishing boats come in and it's kind of sticking out into the harbor. Sometimes you can get a lot of good birds in close up right next to the pier. Well, this didn't turn out to be one of the most productive stops, as there actually weren't too many birds hanging around the pier. I did get a decent view of these 2 male red-breasted mergansers, so that's another one for the list. This is an immature great black-backed gull, which looks completely different from the adult, with a distinctive checkerboard patterning. Kind of a neat looking bird. Just as I was about to leave, a female long-tailed duck popped up right next to the pier. This species is already on the list from the first video, but I was happy to get this nice close-up footage. So what I'm going to do now is actually cut my route a little bit short. I'm going to drive straight across Cape Ann to Halibut Point State Park. I'm realizing some of the stops that I was planning to make along the way are not going to be too good in today's weather, and the approaches might be a little bit treacherous as well because of the snow. So I'm going to go to this place that has a nice parking lot. Halibut Point is a place where you can maybe pick up a few land birds as well. So hopefully I can add some more birds to the list there. When I arrived at Halibut Point, it was snowing more heavily than it had all day, but as I walked down the entrance path, the winds, at least, seemed rather calm. That was deceptive, however. Once I left the shelter of the tree-lined path and reached the ocean, it was a very different story. Well, I did say that I wanted to have some birding adventures this year. Obviously, this was difficult weather conditions to find and photograph birds, but I did spot one white-winged scoter out there in the waves. And then I spotted one of my main targets for the day, a harlequin duck. These are really beautiful little ducks, and I'll definitely get some better views sometime in the future. I apologize if this footage is making anyone seasick. Walking along the north side of Halibut Point, I spotted several more harlequin ducks, and then I found something different, this female black scoter. So that's all 3 scoter species added to the year list in this episode. On the walk back to the car, I encountered a small group of robins eating berries, so I'll add those to the list. I must say, I encountered very few land birds at all during my visit to Cape Ann. All the action was on the ocean. Okay, I just finished up my birding at Halibut Point State Park, and it was a bit of an adventure, as you could see. Once you got out to the very tip of there, which is really the tip of Cape Ann itself, the wind was really blowing. The waves were crashing in, and what really made it tough was the snow blowing in sideways, kind of right in your face. But I did get the target species for there, which was the harlequin ducks. They're found there every winter. It's a very reliable spot for them, and I just love coming out and seeing them. This is a duck that actually loves the crashing waves next to the rocks. They're in their element out there, so it's appropriate to film them in those conditions. Okay, so that concludes my birding for today. I really can't do much more in these conditions, but not the video. I'm going to keep birding again tomorrow on Sunday. The weather forecast is a little better. Not supposed to be snowing tomorrow, and so we'll see if we can add some more. We still have a lot of common birds we need to get on the list. Really haven't added all that many species, although we've gotten some good ones. So let's reconvene tomorrow and hopefully have some sunshine. All right, it's now the next day, Sunday, and the weather is much nicer today. It's sunny out, as you can see, and without much wind, so that really makes things a lot better for birding. I am in Acton, Massachusetts right now. I've driven about half an hour west of where I live, and what I am doing is looking for two targets. That is horned lark and Lapland Longspur. I've already seen a large flock of horned larks flying around, and the Lapland Longspurs are reported to be in with them. So I'm going to see if I can track them down. They should be pretty easy to see against the snow. The problem is just going to be getting close to them. So let's see what kind of footage I can get. Initially, the flock of larks and hopefully longspurs was quite far away and backlit. Fortunately, after a short wait, they took off, circled the area for a while, and then settled down quite close to the road and in good light. It was a lot of fun watching these larks walking around on the snow, feeding on leftover grain in this field. However, I did not spot any longspurs, and the flock soon took off again. The flock did eventually settle down fairly close to me once again, but this time on the other side of the road where the lighting was poor. At this point, another birder with a spotting scope showed up, and he was able to spot a few longspurs in with the larks and get me on them. Lucky for me. So in this poor footage here, the longspurs are the smaller birds. These two birds here are longspurs. I was able to process some still photos to get some record shots of the Lapland Longspurs, which I will count on the list. The cheek pattern is quite distinctive, so there's no doubt about the ID. Okay, so that was a lot of fun. Before we finish this video, I do want to add a few more birds that I've seen at my home patch. So took my dog out for a walk there early this morning and picked up a few more species, a few more common ones to add. So we had some mallards sitting out on the ice here, big flock of about 300 mallards. So we really need to get those on the list for the year. Also saw some black ducks swimming around in the creek, which was about the only open water that was left. So nice to see these black ducks. And I went to look for the brown thrasher that has been overwintering, and I've already seen it this year once, but was not able to get a photo. Unfortunately, this morning I wasn't able to find it, but while I was looking for it, a eastern towhee hopped out onto the path. So this is another overwintering bird, unusual to find in winter, and I was able to get some nice looks at the towhee, so we'll count that one as well. So I do have some other common ones to add. I'll get to that next week. I think this video is going to be getting a little long, and I don't want to make them too long. So I'm going to wrap this one up here. Thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe if you're enjoying the videos, and I'll see you in the next one.